Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at two works by the artist. I'm not sure how the first name is pronounced, but given the way it's written here, I'm going to assume it's Lale, but it could be Lale. So Lale Westvind doing these two pieces here. Apparently Void Packer 2, this is Void Packer number 1, apparently Void Packer 2 just came out, so that's a bit of a bummer because I could have got that included in this package, but I'm definitely going to get that one as well. But I wanted to get a video out of these two and encourage you to go get these as well as Void Packer 2. This first one, Void Packer 1, is a small anthology of Lale's work. There's a nice little drawing and a signature inside here, which is awesome. Then you get kind of the thematic of the issue, which is the Void Packer, this like almost someone who's got the horror of the vacuum and they just want to fill it with everything. And then there are a couple different short stories here. So the first one, Life in Limb, these are all black and white stories. A lot of really nice production stuff going on in here in terms of like the things that are being combined to put together the art. The actual printing itself, I think, is printed out in dots, and so that type of that part of the production's not as clean as it could be, but there's a lot of really nice like textural work going on, and the way that's combined with the clean work and then the dot tones, I think, get some really, really cool imagery throughout. I especially love all the like dry brushy textures over here up against then having the tone, I think, is a really nice look. But this is someone who's driving in the rain and they're either tripping or they're crying. Really like the cartooning on the eyeballs here, making it look totally crazy. This woman comes across this like strange genital looking like lump in the road. This is all pretty much silent, so like this crazy little horror story, this very uncomfortable genital looking thing that eventually you see has like an eyeball in it as well. It's just kind of the story of this woman's encounter with it. So that's one of the stories in there. Then you get another one of the one-page Void Packer pieces. I really, really like the application of the ink or whatever it is on here and the different textures, the different dry brush techniques that are achieved. This is kind of like a sophisticated version of when you give a student like a assignment to make a line that has an expressive emotional quality to it. That's these kind of marks right here really convey that, and then going with the words, it creates like a visual poetry. So some poetics of form in the comics, which I like. One of the reasons I was so excited about Lale is that the book Flow Form Specimen was one of my favorite pieces of just like poetics of form I've seen so far, and so this is an artist I was paying attention to, and when I saw that more work was coming out on Instagram, I went to the web store and got the things that were there. So that's how I got these two books. And then the last piece here is probably my favorite piece in this. Well, actually, I guaranteed it's my favorite piece in this. It's a little bit more straightforward of the story and has some really, really awesome writing in it. It's set in a future where people are now being put through genetic experimentation under the guise of like, hey, the climate is changing, so we're got to prepare you. We're got to try and cause these mutations that will allow us to survive in the world that is to come. This one gal in particular has signed up for one of these trials, and there's just some really great dialogue in here. I don't want to read all of it and give it away because as it goes, there's some even funnier stuff. But just this sequence right here cracked me up, and I just really liked the dialogue. It felt very particular to like the interaction between two specific people. So this character is explaining to the mom going to this trial, and the mom is saying, well, I want to have grandchildren. Aren't you going to have kids? She says, Mom, I'm gay. Well, what's the point anyway? Well, I thought you were bi or pan. Well, what's the point anyways? World ending soon, right? You don't know what's going to happen. I still want grandchildren. Yeah, well, maybe I'll reproduce asexually like the lesbian mother of Christ's second coming. It will be covered in fur like a werewolf. What? Like this meme I just sent you, and it shows a meme with the werewolf baby. And then the main character says, what's the point, Mom? I can barely afford to feed myself, and the world's going to be too hot for life in a few years. You don't know that. Maybe your werewolf baby Jesus will save us all. Yeah, or aliens. Well, I heard on a podcast that the aliens may actually be using Earth as a plastic mining planet, disguising themselves in our government and all. And they're going to return when we're all dead to harvest it. So just as a interaction between a mom and a daughter, like the mom being very open-minded and being like, I thought you were bi or pansexual, but I still want a grandkid, and like there's the back and forth and the conspiracy theory. It just feels very well observed, as Sean would like to say. It seems like interaction between two real people. So really enjoyed that, and I saw that Void Packer 2 just came out, so I will definitely be ordering that and doing a review on it. But I also got a much longer work called Grip, and this book blew my mind. This book is so beautiful, and this book is so encouraging to me for the projects I'm working on now, Bound, and the works that I'm doing with some of my students, because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with choosing different colors as our primary colors than the CMYK, and that's exactly what is happening in Grip. So again, I got another little sketch on the inside, which is awesome. This is put out by Perfectly Acceptable Press in Chicago. And then you see right away, well, like on the cover and on the inside, we're working with a different set of colors as our primary colors. We're working with a set of spot colors and using those as the mixtures rather than CMYK. And I believe these three colors on the cover are the ones we're looking at. But there's actually like a pink in here. I don't know that these are the primaries actually. But you can see here this really beautiful gradient that's created out of some of the primaries. I know this on screen probably doesn't come across as impactfully as it does in person, but you can almost see the way which ink sets on top of which ink, and it becomes luminous in the way like a painting could be, and that's not a quality I see a lot in print. And then because the spot colors that are chosen have some really fluorescent colors, this really fluorescent yellow, this really fluorescent pink, the color combinations that happen in this book are also really intense and just vibrant colors. And then the layering of the inks, letting the light go through the ink, bounce off the white paper, and come back up through the layers of the inks, controlling those kind of things. Lale Westvind really goes in on that and does every trick in the book that could be done with these kind of combinations to create some really, really beautiful imagery. So such an inspirational book, something that I'm going to be looking to and stealing tricks from and aiming towards in terms of beauty of production. There is a story in this. It's very strange. There's no words. It's all entirely visual, so it's mostly focused on the beauty of the reproduction and the beauty of the images as prints. This is very much an artist who it's obvious to me that they think of themselves as a printmaker first rather than an illustrator or something like this, that it's being conceived of for the print medium, and playing with those kind of effects. But the story that runs through this is this woman gets like this mysterious power to reshape matter using her hands, is what it looks like. So here you get the cup gets reshaped and made into a plate of food. And it's just a visual exploration of that. Some of it feels a bit like Yuichi Yokoyama's type of really intense cartooning, but then with like the really expressive, energetic cartooning with kind of the slow moving story. That feels very similar, and some of the more abstract cartooning and things, but then having the color thrown in really, really helps. And there's just so many effects that are created with this limited color palette that I think are beautiful throughout the book. Here we get the character meeting, someone else who has this power. You just get all these cool, like here there's this overprint of the pink on top of the bluish color. It's really cool. These really nice bright yellows, lots of beautiful stuff in there. The color combinations start getting more complex as we get later in the book. Here there's like a plane crash that's happening, and you start to see that the yellow and the blue are being mixed together to create greens, and there's some really beautiful colors created in these landscapes here as this plane lands and we go into the landscape. You see this richer palette of wider variety of colors here being created out of those three primaries, and then a much more desaturated muted page. Even though it's a bunch of crazy colors and it's still psychedelic, some of the vibrancy of the colors is muted by them being overlapped in many different ways. So I really like that the artist explored all of these different combinations. I think when we think of, I'm doing a book in spot colors, I'm trying to keep them as three distinct colors, but really most books are three colors plus black anyways. So seeing what you can do with the range of just a different three colors is really cool. And pages like that, just really stunning imagery to me. There's a really fun little visual trick going on here that I think makes the story a little bit more unsettling for a second. The character digs down and finds a hole of water, and we're really just seeing her reflection in the water, but it almost looks like a face looking back up at her and a face that she's making out with. I like that. It gets more disturbing. It becomes like Charles Burns-esque, good, like grotesque for a second, and then you realize, oh, she's just drinking water. But that meeting of the self in kind of an interesting, odd way really caught my eye there. This sequence in the book where neons are being recreated, I wish that I could show this in a way on screen where it actually made sense, like how beautiful this page is and how well the neon vibe is captured because of what's going on in the ink. But some things I'll point out, like on this page here, there's this really big dark blue, and then there's overprints of yellow, and so it creates a different color here. And then here there's an overprint of the pink, and the overprint kind of looks about the same, but it's filling in the little characters around in a different way. And even just the overprint of the yellow on the blue being controlled, or the vibrant pink over top of it, is really creating like a certain set of what's called structural colors you can't get just straight through pure mixing, but it's like has to do with the way the light goes through them as they sit on top of one another. Really makes for some cool effects. And then on this page as well, even though we have all of these like streak positions here, there's also these things that probably aren't going to show on screen where there's like yellow and pink printed over top of the very dark color, and it's making this extra glow that's almost hidden in the dark. Definitely a trick I've been planning on trying in bound and seen it in print. I've been saying this a lot lately, but I keep finding these things that are like, oh, that's what I want to try. Okay, cool, like that's gonna work. And this book was so full of that. And then a bunch of things that I hadn't thought about trying that are like totally worth stealing too, just in terms of controlling where you're having an overprint or where something's actually trapped. Some really beautiful changes using the same three colors, showing the range of vibes that you can get out of changing those three colors, from the more desaturated stuff to the more standard spot color stuff, dropping out the heavy blues for these more like heavenly sherbet colors. Even these pages that are just one big kind of gradient with very subtle manipulations in there, it's all celebrating like how the ink sets on the paper and the effects that creates throughout. This is another one here where just the physical nature of these colors on the page is just so overwhelmingly beautiful. Now, this is a collection of two books that were originally put out as risographs. So I imagine with the risographs being in the spot colors, that was also pretty cool, and having the more like randomized dot pattern probably made the book look a little bit more texturally sound. But I would imagine there was also some registration issues that came up, whereas this book is being printed with three spot colors on an offset press, so you actually are probably going to get greater fidelity. I wish I had both versions to compare, but I think you're probably going to get greater fidelity in terms of registration and manipulation of the colors this way, especially if they were using the same basic set of colors. But things like this are just so gorgeous. These colors that are really made out of these other strange primary colors, and you can see even like the orange, because the orange is just an overlap of the pink and the yellow at full intensity. It also looks like a flat color. It looks like they had a spot orange, and it's a very vibrant and intense orange, and it's just beautiful stuff throughout the book. I mean, I was looking at this, and Tori was like across the room like behind me at her desk, and she kept going, ooh, that's pretty. Oh, that's so hard to look at though. Ooh, that's pretty. Yeah, she couldn't help it. And also, I'd left it laying around, and Jack picked it up, and he said, "Why you have this book? That's like a fever dream." So this 13-year-old kid opening this up all the energy and vibrancy of it really called to him. But then the strange nature of it was, I think, it made him feel funny inside in a good way. But a lot of really cool compositions in here, a lot of really fun, like time being stretched out over a lot. This character kind of running around and bending the space. Just great, great cartooning throughout. And then this sequence here also does this just absolutely beautiful musical thing with color, where we've been in like what is the main kind of color palette of the book, using those three colors in their basic combinations, not doing a lot. You get back in here getting some more of the greens and whatnot, but mostly working within the primary palette, and then switching very quickly, even with some carryover of the more pinks and oranges and yellows, and then dumping right into this like very desaturated dark scene. Here the contrast gets so limited that it goes to this very nighttime type of light quality, where your sensors aren't working in color anymore, they're just working more in value. And then you turn the page as the fire gets lit and the orange just comes back. I think that's such a beautiful, like I said, musical moment of use of color throughout a book, where you've primed the audience for one response for the majority of the book. Like if I just flip through real quick, you'll see that's the majority of the book, with a few kind of deviations from that, to a very, very different soothing color palette, much soothing. The reader audience finally gets a breath of air from all of the intensity overwhelming, and then you turn the page and you give them like the most saturated, intense page yet. It's really like a formally cruel kind of little trick to play, but I really, really like it. And then you can tell that that trick was an intentional trick as you flip to the next page, and you see that the saturation's brought down a little bit, the colors aren't so intense, and you start to ease the reader back into some variations of more or less intense. I think it's really, really brilliant. Also, because this is a book that is pretty much doing what most print does, just using different colors, it's taking that very seriously and educating the audience on, hey, look, this is what you're seeing up close. This is how I've manipulated the prints. And there's these zoom ins here on the last two pages of like, here you're seeing a blue and the yellow over each other flat. Here's the blue and the yellow in, like, here's the yellow flat with some variations in the blue, and educating the audience to some extent, and also letting people know it's printed offset. It's using Pantone 812U, yellow U, and 288U. I'm not sure what the U is. I know what the C. Oh, the U is the uncoded. Yeah, the uncoded colors. So it's got that little bit of educational. For someone who doesn't really know what they're looking at, that may not be so helpful, but I'd imagine the majority of the audience looking at a book like this, that is also helpful information. And I really think this is the future of comics. Like, this is where I'm going to be pushing all the projects I work on, is really considering the physical aspects of the bookmaking, that it's something that you really do kind of need to see in person to experience properly. So seeing some artists like Lale Westvind and Joe Kessler's Window Pane, who are working with three or four different spot colors, anthologies like Lagan Review, people who are really pushing material form as part of comics, really, really excite me. And Lale Westvind is right at the peak of that. After seeing Flowform Specimen as a cool conceptual piece, this is something like an anthology with a lot of different story types that really made me laugh. And then seeing absolute production perfection have me super high on this artist, and very much looking forward to anything else they do. And I would encourage you all to definitely go out and get these. By far, Grip is, like, if you can only get one, Grip is the masterpiece that I've seen so far. So hopefully you all go and enjoy yourself some Lale or Lale Westvind books. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg, and is very large for a manga, so that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival Parade, and he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are. and we could not recommend this book more.